day 2, parallel and perpendicular lines. Essential question. How do you write the equation for a line parallel to a given line through a given point? So this lesson is going to be all about parallel lines. Write an equation in slope-intercept form for the line that passes through 3, 1 and is parallel to the graph of y equals 2x plus 1. Well, the first thing I'm going to do is graph the equation that they give me, y equals 2x plus 1. I'll put my first dot on positive 1, rise 2, run 1, rise 2, run 1, rise 2, run 1. Now I've got to think about what information am I given and what information do I need in order to be able to write an equation in slope-intercept form. Well, slope and an intercept. I don't know my intercept. None of the information that they give me is an intercept. I do know my original line's y-intercept, but I need to write an equation for a new line. I also know that I don't have a slope. I have the slope of my original line, but I have to figure out what the slope should be for my new line. I'm also given a coordinate point, 3, 1. I'm going to graph that coordinate point right now. I know that my line is going to need to go through that point. That point is going to be something I want to use when writing an equation. If it's going to go through that point, that needs to be in my equation somewhere. Now the other thing I need in order to be able to write an equation that has a point in it is point-slope form, meaning I need a slope. I have to think about what do I know about the slopes of parallel lines. Well, we said that the slope of this line over here, remember m represents slope, so our slope of that line is 2. I know that parallel slopes stay the same, so if that line has a slope of 2, my new line also needs to have a slope of 2, the one that's going to go through that blue dot. So my slope, therefore, is also going to be 2. Now, if I have a point and a slope, I can write it in point-slope form. Y minus 1 equals 2 times x minus 3. In order to be able to get this into slope-intercept form, which is what the problem is asking for, I need to bomb it. 2 times x is 2x. 2 times negative 3 is negative 6. Bring down the y minus 1. Add 1 to both sides. Y equals 2x minus 5. Now I can graph this equation, and if I did it correctly, it should go through that blue dot that I already have on my coordinate grid. My first dot is going to go at negative 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then I'm going to rise 2, run 1. I didn't hit my blue dot yet, but I should. Rise 2, run 1. Rise 2, run 1. I went through that coordinate point 3, 1, and if you look at my graph, those lines are parallel to one another. So the answer for this problem is the equation y equals 2x minus 5. If you look at our original equation and our new equation, the slopes are the same because they're parallel. The only thing that's different is the y-intercepts, which you'll see that in our graph too. This one crossed the y-axis at 1. This one crossed the y-axis at negative 5. Write an equation in slope-intercept form for the line that passes through negative 3, 4 and is parallel to the graph of y equals negative 2x plus 7. Again, I'm going to start by graphing the equation they give me. So I'll put my first dot at 7. Rise negative 2, run 1, rise negative 2, run 1, rise negative 2, run 1. I also know that my new line that I make has to go through the coordinate point negative 3, 4. So I'm also going to graph that point, which is right there, the blue dot. So if the point they give me is negative 3, 4, I know that the equation that has a point in it is point-slope form. So I have my point, I need my slope. The slope of my original line, M, is -2. That means my slope for my new line that's going to go through that blue dot also has to be -2. Now I've got a point and a slope. I can write it in point-slope form. So y minus 4 equals -2 times x minus a -3, and I'm going to change that into a superplus. In order to get this in slope-intercept form, which is what the question is asking for, I have to bomb it, or distribute. -2 times x is -2x. -2 times 3 is -6. Bring down the y minus 4. Add 4 to both sides. And I'm left with y equals -2x minus 2. I'm going to graph this and see if it goes through my blue dot. If it does, I know I did it correctly. If I make my first dot at -2, I can rise -2, run 1, rise -2, run 1. Now you'll notice if I keep making dots in that direction, I'm never going to go through the blue dot. So I can go backwards. I can go up 2, left 1, up 2, left 1, up 2, left 1. And my line does go through that blue dot. Again, if I look at my two equations, they're similar in that they both have the same slope, but they're different in that they have different y-intercepts. This line has a y-intercept of +7. This line has a y-intercept of -2, which is the difference in our equations. +7, -2. Write an equation in slope-intercept form for the line that passes through 4, -1, and is parallel to the graph of y equals 1/4 x plus 7. I'll graph 1/4 x plus 7 first. Rise 1, run 4, rise 1, run 4. My new line is going to have to go through the coordinate point 4, -1. So that is the point I need to use for my equation. If I have a point, what I'm missing is a slope. The slope of my original line is 1/4. So I'm going to write m equals 1/4. So that means my new line also is going to need to have a slope of 1/4 because parallel slopes stay the same. I know a point, I know a slope, so I can put it in point-slope form. Y minus a -1, superplus, equals 1/4 times x minus 4. In order to get it in slope-intercept form, I need to distribute 1/4 x, and then if I want to do 1/4 times the -4, I'll put -4 over 1. 1 times -4 is -4. 4 times 1 is 4. -4 divided by 4 is -1. Subtract 1 on both sides. -1 and -1 make -2. Don't mistake that for being 0. A negative and a negative make a bigger negative. Now if I graph that, I'm going to put my first dot at -2, rise 1, run 4. You'll notice I already, just by doing my slope once, hit that dot for -1. So if you look at my two equations, the only difference is the y-intercepts. The slopes are the same. My original line had a y-intercept of 7. My new line has a y-intercept of -2. Summary. Your homework for this lesson is page 241, numbers 11 through 16.